and welcome to another episode of Creepy and Geeky. This week, I'm joined by Donna from the Donna Tha Dead podcast. We are going to be talking about Black horror. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you so much. Boy, you make me sound really professional. I love that.
My intros are always way more professional than the rest of the podcast. So,
I mean, you could have said I was a horror dork and you would have made that sound like, silk. I love that.
I try to fancy up the beginning, just, make it. Usually, like I said, I write these out, but I didn't write it out this time. So I was flying.
Oh, that's fine.
And usually I mess them up. So, because that's why I write it out, is because otherwise
I almost got goosebumps from that, Robert. I just saying.
Well, welcome. I wanted to get you on so we could talk some Black horror, specifically the work of Jordan Peele, Get Out and Us. And we just got a teaser for the new movie, which we're getting the trailer Sunday the 13th
for Nope.
Nope.
I'm so excited to see that.
Oh my God. I love his movies. So it's like, I'm super excited to see what this is going to be about, because we have no clue.
No, it almost makes me feel like, with Get Out, we kind of saw like the posters and we could kind of put a little bit of it together, but not really. And with Us, you really didn't know what the heck was going on. So with this one, I'm like, what is it about? What's it about? So we're all taking bets in our house. Like, what is this movie about? And my kids seem to think it's like aliens. And I'm like, no, that's not gonna. And they're like, oh no, but they're looking up in the sky. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. It's so funny. I think that's probably part of the whole concept of Nope, is just whatever we think it is, it's not that.
It's not that. Exactly. Yeah. And I love that. Nope. That's nope. Something everybody can say and we can all identify with. Nope.
Yeah.
And it also makes me feel like as a Black horror fan, it makes me feel like when I see those situations in horror movies and I'm like, nope, that's not gonna, it wouldn't be me. I'm not doing it.
I wonder if that's gonna play something into it too.
I think it might. I hope so. I really feel like that's truly how it is when you're watching horror. At least in my head, growing up as a teen in the 80s, that was a big thing. Like, there's no way I would be, no way I'm going through there. So that's right. That's what Nope means to me.
Well, there is a whole stereotype. You see it in especially like comedies and stuff, of Black people who are just like, nope, I wouldn't do that. Like, why are you going into the house? Why are you going?
Right.
Why aren't you leaving? And it's so funny too, because I'd never experienced that in real life. And then we were watching. We moved here to Georgia.
Oh my goodness.
And we went to the movie theaters, and I don't even remember what we were watching, but I had these couple of Black women right in front of us, and they were just like talking at the screen, like talking to the characters and everything. And it was like, it didn't bother me. Normally it would have, but it didn't bother me because it confirmed that stereotype. And I know that's not for everybody, but it confirmed that stereotype. And it was just, and they were funny too. So it wasn't just like, I mean, if they'd been obnoxious, it would have been
right.
But they were great. So it did actually enhance the movie in a lot of ways.
One of the things I
remember what it was we were watching.
One of the things I do like, and I know that you're a fan of the Scream movies, like I am as well.
Oh yeah,
is in Scream 2 when Jada Pinkett Smith is in the theater with Omar Epps, and she's like, "Bitch, star 69," and like what? Mm-hmm. I love that they actually have her be that vocal Black person in the audience, just because that's how our rational brain thinks. There's right. No way I'm gonna go, who's there? I'm gonna be calling the cops. You know what I mean? But to me, that's what Nope means. I keep making that joke to my friends and my husband. That's exactly, somebody's got to say that in that manner. Nope.
Oh yeah. Nope.
But yeah, all of his movies are always really a breath of fresh air, and they're funny, and I'm so glad that he still keeps a lot of humor. I mean, a lot of horror has humor, so that's a given. But I just love that. So where should we start first? Should we start at the beginning with Get Out?
Yeah, let's start right at the beginning with Get Out. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So when I didn't see it until much later. It had already come out on video and had been maybe a year later,
Mm-hmm.
if not longer. It was definitely before Us came out, but I'd been hearing about it like for a long time. Everybody was like, talking about it in such glowing terms, and I was like, it's crazy, Jordan Peele, the guy from Key and Peele, making a
Right.
like a straight up horror movie and it being good. It's like it's not a comedy. So when I finally got to watch it, I was blown away. I was like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
This is like they talk about elevated horror, and this elevated horror in a way that no, I don't think anybody was expecting. From my perspective, it just was a jolt, and
Mm-hmm.
it spoke on so many levels. It's just it's hard to talk about it in some ways just because it's just so good.
It
Um,
really is. I'm like you. I didn't go see this in the theater. I did see it once it came to DVD and all that, but
right,
um I was the exact same way. I was like, oh my gosh, he's really funny. I don't know if is this going to be any good, but then we also have to reflect. If you've seen the Key and Peele skit show, they actually had the one segment where there were like, I guess they were supposed to be like two just regular from the hood guys that went in the theater, and they kept saying like all of these really great movie techniques, and oh, I saw that in Nosferatu. They were very film astute people, but just kind of doing it in this kind of urban way. And so that already made me think, oh, well, he's clearly a movie fan. He's got to be a lover of film. So when
right,
I watched this, I was just like you, I was blown away. But I think for me, his movies work when I watch them on a second or a third viewing, because
mm-hmm,
I catch so many things, so many little Easter eggs, or so many really purposeful things that he did that maybe would go over your head the first time when you watch it. So Get Out to me just, it really, really just blew me away. Like everything about it. That in itself, I can honestly say I can kind of identify with it. And I think anybody who's dated someone that doesn't look like them can kind of identify that kind of fearful feeling of going to meet the parents for the first time.
right,
And so you kind of take that and then you make it into a literal horror film. That's, to me, that's brilliant, because if you've ever dated somebody that's not in your race, that's exactly what it feels like. Like you don't know,
yeah,
you don't know what to expect. And I love how he actually spoke with her at the beginning. Did you tell them that I'm black? Because everybody that's in an interracial relationship has that conversation. Did you
right,
tell them that I'm black? Did you tell them that I'm white? You have to let people know before they get there. So I don't know, just it kind of resonated with me. And one thing that I really like is that overall feeling of dread when you're out of your
yeah,
element. And
oh yeah,
for me, I've always been the other. And I know that's going to sound weird, but even in the place where I work now, there's not a lot of African Americans. So I've gotten comfortable being kind of that one or two other person that doesn't look like everybody else. Um, and it's funny too, because I don't want to talk your whole show, but
no,
from my
go,
perspective, when I talk to people, like just like I'm talking to you now, I've already said I'm African American, but when I talk to people and I give my talks virtually, and we don't have our camera on, and then I meet them in person, then they go, oh, and I'm like, oh, you expected me to be taller. I kind of break the ice because I know what they're
right,
thinking, but they don't want to say it. And so that whole uncomfortable feeling where they're at the Armitage's house, and they have the big party and people are there, and they're kind of whispering and talking. I know that feeling. So to me, it was almost immersive of my experience dealing with people in that kind of world. It's odd, but it's a comforting film to me, because I know other people feel like that and other people have been through it.
right. Like for me, like I'm obviously white, and my wife's white, and my whole family's white. So it's still uncomfortable when you go to the in-laws, for
It
sure. But
is.
that's on
Yeah.
a next level, and that's the thing. And I didn't even think about this when I chose these movies too, that you actually have this experience in a way because your husband is white, and so
Yeah.
so you actually have that on a different level, even more than anybody else would normally. And I can see where you would connect to this on that much deeper level of that, of did you tell them I'm black? And
Yeah.
and
And
still,
it was
even
the
though,
same. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was saying it was the same for my husband. Like the very first time he went to an actual cookout, like our family reunion, he's just like, so everybody knows, right? And I'm like, yeah, they know. You'll be fine. It'll be okay. And so he got to experience it on the other end because he'd only been around maybe, my grandmother, my mom, and a couple of family members, but this was like the whole entire family of people
Oh
he was
yeah.
meeting. And so yeah, that whole party scene where Chris is there and everybody's just kind of, just kind of, I guess, sizing him up because we now know
Yeah.
that there's something going. We don't know. We still didn't know what was going on at that point, but
Yeah.
we know something is afoot because it was getting a
Yeah.
real creepy vibe.
Super uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
the first time you watch that, it's super uncomfortable because you're like, they're being really racist in a nice way, but like it's still super racist.
Like
And
super
so,
blatant. Like the one woman that asked her, "So is it true?" And I'm like, "Oh
yeah.
my god, did she just ask if his dick
Yeah.
works the way she's assuming?" I died. I literally died. I was like, "That is so rude." And they're like, grabbing his arm and feeling his muscles, and
Yeah.
it and
Talking about how black is in fashion now. And it's like,
it was
dude.
insane. So the thing I wanted to say, and I know at the very, very beginning of this film, when this film starts, and Lakeith Stanfield is talking on the phone. Obviously, he's talking to Rose at this point, but we don't know that. And he's trying to
Yeah.
find this house, and and then he sees the car following him, and he's like, "No, I'm getting out of here," and he starts
Yeah.
making his way around. I
In the
also know that feeling
suburbs,
in
as he
the
says.
summer.
I love the way he says it.
Yeah, because that's exactly, it's like, yeah, I know what happens to brothers in these type of situations. I'm getting the hell out of here. So I
Oh
mean, and
man.
I'm laughing at it, but from a person who's done this,
No.
and it's a overall feeling of dread, and
Oh
not to bring the
yeah.
podcast down because we're giggling and laughing, but even now with the stuff that we see on the news, I
Oh yeah.
I joked to one of my girlfriends the other day that I don't even jog outside anymore because I'm so afraid. Like I do my treadmill, I call it my hamster wheel because it's my safe zone to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really like being outside. Like I love fresh air and being able to go and see different things when I'm out. So that whole feeling at the beginning, I was just like, we know something's going to happen. This is not going to end well. But even he narrates it to himself. Nope, I know this what's going to happen. This is not going to end
Right.
well, and it surely doesn't. It
No.
does not. But one thing I will say, it's a stellar cast, and
Oh man. It's so good.
everybody just acts their asses off. I mean, you want to like the Armitages, you really do. They seem like very liberal white people. Like they
Yeah.
they don't seem like they have a malicious bone in their body, and in some ways they don't, because they don't think that what they're doing is wrong, but they think they're serving a greater good, and
Right.
it's odd. It's an odd thing.
Yeah.
um
It's just, I don't know. And that's the funny thing too, to me, that it's actually in the way that because I saw it the one time after I got it on Blu-ray, and then I
mhm.
watched it again just the other day, and it had only been the second time I'd watched it. I noticed that that whole thing where they are like super liberal, but to me it seems more like an act.
It
Not that,
is.
because it comes across like the first time you watch it and everything, you're like, okay, well, they don't seem so bad. And then you get that twist. You're like, oh, they are really bad. But this time, watching it again, knowing everything,
Mm-hmm.
you see the cracks, you see the artifice, and it makes everything so much creepier
It's
from
creepy.
the get. And so it's yeah, it's the whole movie, when you watch it a second time or third time or whatever, it's it's so much more sinister when
It
you know
is.
what's going to happen. So yeah, it's I
I
don't
know.
even know. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, because they're they're clearly affluential. They invite him in their home. They don't seem to have a prejudice or racist bone in their body.
At least the parents. The brother seems to be very racist. So
I don't know if he's racist or he's just a dick. He seems more
well,
like a dick
he's a
to
dick
me.
too, but he's very like, are you into MMA, and
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
his
his
little
body and stuff
comments
like that.
about
So it's,
yeah.
yeah, so it's just like, that's fairly racist, and they were hiding it well,
And
but
I really like Caleb Landry though, because he really made me hate that character so much. He was just so full of himself, and
oh yeah,
um but the thing that I do really appreciate, like I said, is that he does have a great balance of, like, some people can't do horror and humor well, and he does. And
mm-hmm.
Landis is one of those people. He can do horror and humor really well, and I think he pulled it off, because if he didn't have his friend Rod, Little Rel,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that movie would have taken and you've got the Blu-ray, so you already saw the alternate ending that takes like
Mm-hmm.
a darker turn.
Oh, much darker. Yeah.
And I'm so glad he didn't go with that one, because I don't think
Oh,
my heart could have
right.
taken that at all.
No, no,
Um,
that's just not. Yeah, I actually rewatched the alternate ending this time too, and was just like, no, no. I'm really
yeah,
glad that they
no.
went with the better ending on that one.
Yeah, and I think he was really a good comic relief in between all of these parts where our hearts are racing and we're so fearful for Chris. And my one of my favorite parts, and we talk about it all the time, is when Rod goes to the police station and he's like, "Yeah, my friend's been abducted and they turned them into sex slaves," and and
Right.
this policewoman is just like so intent on listening to his plea about his missing friend, and then she brings some other cops in, and then they all listen to it. And he's like, "Don't say I didn't give you nothing." They just bust out laughing, because they are like, really, sex slaves? That's what they're doing. They're turning, black people into sex slaves. But he wasn't wrong. They were kind of turning them into
In a
slaves,
way, yeah.
and some of them were sex slaves, the way that lady was looking at them.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, you can't
it
tell
was,
me that Lakeith Stanfield's character had been turned into a
oh
sex slave with
man,
that lady.
that's so gross.
Right.
But what I wanted to really talk about too is for me personally, I love the fact that we get what it's all about, what the whole meaning or what the plot is, and why she's bringing these people home, and the horrible things that they're doing. But man, it takes a while. When it takes a while to get there and it hits you, all of the kind of racial Easter eggs that he kind of put in there. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, the first time I watched it, I didn't really, it went right over my head. I was just so engrossed in watching this movie and seeing how it was going to
Right.
end. And then on the second and third time I watched it, I was like, oh, okay. At the beginning, they are driving to the house, to Rose's parents' house, and the deer comes out of the woods, and then they hit the
Mm-hmm.
deer. And then he goes and he watches, because he's thinking about his mom and how she died on the side of the road, which is really a horrible, horrible memory for him to have as a child, to know that that's how she died. But then later on, um, without realizing it, that was a buck. That was a buck
Yep.
at the beginning. And later on, and I'm not spoiling this for anybody that's listening, because this came out in 2017. I mean, it's old.
Yeah.
Um, by movie standards, this is old. But at the end, when he's kind of escaping from the house, he actually stabs the father, Rosa's father, with a buck.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, because you've watched the horror noir documentary, they used to
Yep.
call black men bucks. So
Yep.
at the
Young buck.
first viewing, it didn't even register to me. The same thing like when they're
Yeah.
coming and the guests are there and they're kind of feeling him and looking at him. It's
Mm-hmm.
like he's at a slave
The slave
auction. And
auction. Yep.
yeah, when they have the bingo cards, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
Um, I was blown away by that once it sat in me and sat in my head, and I was like, "Holy crap! I didn't even think about it." These are
Yeah,
like
I
really,
didn't catch any of that the first time I watched it
yeah,
because there was also him pulling the cotton
the
out of the
cotton,
chair.
right?
He was
The
picking
cotton
cotton,
that
and I was
people
like,
used
"Oh
to
my
pick.
god!" I was like, "That's
Exactly.
crazy." It was like he was like so many of those like little touches like that were just like, and I'm not gonna get that because I don't have that experience, so I wasn't catching those things immediately. And it's interesting you
No,
didn't either because I mean that was cool because this is how I watch movies too, like you do. The first watch is just to watch it, just to let it
right.
wash over me, just to enjoy it. And then on the subsequent watches is when I catch things. And I learn different things. And sometimes it's through reading articles or whatever about them. And then oh, okay, I see that. So, but yeah, do you have more of those? So,
I think the one that my daughter actually, no, my son actually pointed out to me was at the very beginning when we first see Chris after Lakeith Stanfield's character is abducted. We first see Chris and he's packing to go to Rosa's house. Um, Donald Glover's song, well, I guess he was going by Childish Gambino at that point, but
yes,
Redbone is the song that's
Redbone.
playing, and the lyrics "Stay woke, don't close
Yes,
your eyes," and I was
I was
like, "Are
totally
you
going to talk
kidding
about this.
me?"
I was totally going to talk about this because I love that song.
I do
Um,
too.
and it's like it started playing at the beginning. I was like, oh my god, because I hadn't actually listened to the song in a while, and I was just like, and it's Childish Gambino's most Prince-like song.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's
I think
kind of
that's
why I
why I
like
like
it.
it too. Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm a huge Prince fan.
I
So
know.
so it when I heard it the first time, I was like, oh my god, who is this? Because I didn't even realize it was Childish Gambino the first time I heard it. And so when it popped on the movie, I was like, I didn't even remember it starting that way. And then it was singing Stay Woke. And I was like, oh, oh yeah, I caught it this time. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really good. I love those subtle little
So many
things that
layers.
you, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of layers. And if anybody says they caught them all the first time, they're lying because you can't. You're
Yeah.
like you said, that first watch is just so you can watch the movie and process it and be like, oh wow. It's the same thing with Midsummer. I've watched that so many times and
Oh
I've
man.
caught so many things now that I didn't even have in my head when I watched it the first time. So
Right.
it's a really inventive way to do horror. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I loved the mystery. And when you get to the reveal, how terrifying that is. To me, that's
Oh man.
terrifying. I
Oh
mean, it
yeah.
really is.
That's something on a whole nother level. And anybody listening to the podcast knows we're a spoiler podcast for the most part. So talking about it, I'm gonna spoil it.
Right.
Just putting the brain inside of putting that guy's brain, Stephen Root's character's brain, into Chris's body. It was just like I hadn't even thought of that was where things were going. Like
No.
I thought they were just brainwashing them, using hypnosis and doing other things to brainwash them into doing stuff, not even fully implanting a brain into somebody's head. Like that was on another on another level I had not even considered when I first watched it.
Nope.
That it was also something I totally forgot on this second watch that the housekeeper and the groundskeeper were the grandparents.
Right.
I totally had forgotten about that. And so it wasn't until the end and she's like, Grandma. And I was like, what? so so yeah,
So
it
I'm
was pretty funny.
assuming I'm assuming that means that they were probably the first people that they did this to, and
I would
maybe
assume so, yeah.
yeah. So the other thing that I also liked was that Jordan Peele actually gave us little clues throughout the movie that these people were, the grandparents were already part of this experiment. And I didn't catch it until I recently watched it. You know, the part that we always used to see on the trailers where the groundskeeper guy is running directly at Chris and then he turns.
Oh, the running picture. Damn it.
Right, because because he said he ran with Jesse Owens, and I was like, holy crap.
I didn't catch that now either. Like literally you telling me that. That's the first time I'm even considering that. That's awesome.
But once again, you're not thinking about that. And then the other part was when they introduced the housekeeper or the maid, and Catherine Keener's character says something like, oh, this is her kitchen. She loves being in that. This was so-and-so's mom's kitchen, and this was her favorite place. And she's in the kitchen. And I'm like, what? I didn't even register she's in her kitchen because she's still here.
Yeah.
But yeah, the grandfather with the Jesse, I just caught that. I was like, he just
didn't even catch that.
He literally just told us that that's the grandfather.
Yeah, and he's running around, you know, in his black body now, just
top of the line,
testing its limits.
And every time when he started talking about his granddaughter, and he was like, I think he's got a crush on you, and she's like, who? Him? No. Like, yeah, she just deflected the whole thing, like, no, that's my granddad. It's like, but what about when they were in his, you know, the part where he thinks that they're leaving, and then he comes across the shoebox with all of the black people that she's been, and he sees the picture of the now housekeeper slash grandma. So like Rose was laying ass all over town. I mean, like, did she sleep with all of these people, or was she just promising them, you know, like the relationship, and they hadn't gotten to that level? Like, I'm just curious, how far were the Armitages wanting to pimp their daughter out to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming, you know, like at least with Chris, you know, she had gone pretty far, but you know, maybe the others, you know, that could have been any number of levels on any of those. So yeah, I mean, but we don't know because we get no other history other than the pictures. What I thought was interesting, and I'm sure I caught it last time, but this time when she's eating cereal like a psychopath.
I talked about that ad nauseum on my other podcast.
I know. I remember you talking about it. Yeah, because that is not right. But she's got the pictures. She's got the same pictures on the wall behind her. So like that's a totally different bedroom than the bedroom she was in with Chris, where they were staying up until that point. And then when she's in the room eating the cereal like a nutball, she those pictures are behind her. So I was like, oh, there's no way she just put those up now. She probably has a totally separate bedroom where she has those up.
Oh yeah, I mean, that house was
they're huge. Her trophies.
Yeah, that's her trophies.
There's her trophy room. Yeah,
I swear, man. Every time I see her
on so many levels.
Fruit Loops and that sipping of that milk, I've never wanted to smash a bowl of cereal in somebody's face.
And here's an interesting thing about that, because they are Fruit Loops, and that's what you call a crazy person. You call them.
That
Fruit
is
Loops.
What you call a crazy. Yeah, and she's dressed like she's on a sanitarium. I mean, she's got like all white.
All white.
You know, her room is like pristine whiteness.
Sterile. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was wild. That was a wild ass ride to be on. And I'm when I do go to the office, I always try to wear one piece of horror clothing, and it's usually something that nobody has any clue that it's horror unless they're a horror fan. So
right.
I have a Get Out pin that has the teacup and the spoon, and nice. So. Yeah, and that's funny because one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, that's such a beautiful pin," and I said, "Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites." I just kind of went about my day, but I was like, "Yeah, if only you knew what this was from." But you know, another thing I will say for this movie, I didn't expect. Like I said, I didn't expect to laugh as much, but I didn't expect to be as tense as I was. Like I was wrought with tension the whole movie. Like even when they were just having the dinner, like the get together, I felt so nervous because it just was an uneasy feeling. And he did a really good job of setting that tone where you're just kind of like, yeah, this is weird. I don't know why it's weird, but it's definitely weird.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. There's got to be something else that we can talk about. Get out before we jump into us. But I don't know. It's just it's a stellar first film. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he won the Oscar for it, and I love the fact that he said it took him 10 years to write it. So if you feel you're a frustrated writer, don't give up because look what he created. I can only imagine how many rewrites he did for this movie.
Oh yeah, and just to get it just right. And I mean, like we said, that alternate ending, he obviously changed that. They filmed it and everything, and then they decided to go into different directions. So I mean, even after you have written it and filmed it and everything else, there's still changes, that there's still ideas that you might have that are better. And
right,
it's got to be willing to adapt, make the product better as you go along. Because I 100% believe that the ending, that the theatrical ending, is the better ending for that, because you need that. You need that release, that good ending, that come down, so that because the other ending, he gets arrested and put in jail, and he's still like, I don't care, I don't need to do this, they're gone, I'm fine with being in jail if they're all gone. And but still, it's still such a downer ending. So, I'm not against downer endings whatsoever. Hereditary and Midsummer both have downer fucking endings, but they're great in that way.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
But Get Out, you needed a good ending on that one. So
we needed a happy ending. That guy had been through so much at that point. I needed his friend to come in there and make that joke and have us all have a huge laughing moment at the end, because we're exhausted. I was exhausted by the end of that movie.
Oh yeah.
And it was just one of those things. It was very brilliantly done. Not a whole lot of gore, for a horror film. It was really more psychological and stressful and thriller. And I don't know about you, but I totally felt vindicated once everybody was dispatched. Like,
oh yeah,
once the house was in flames and everybody was gone, I was like, oh my God, thank God.
And then going back to the grandfather, because the grandfather attacked him. He's down on the ground and he uses the phone to, flash the flash in his eyes and, get the host's body back, his host's brain back. And, then he realizes it. And I love, he's just like, let me do it. And then he fucking shoots her in the stomach. I was just like, that's awesome, because she's not going to know which one's in charge.
She has no clue. And then of course, he has to off himself.
Yeah,
that can you
was so
imagine?
Brutal just to do it.
Think about how many years was he trapped in this man's
in the sunken place the whole time, being able to see out but not be able to do anything,
but scream and just float there. It is brutal. I wish they had kept some of those. I wish he had kept some of those deleted scenes where we saw the kind of monster in the sunken place, but I don't know if you saw it.
I don't think I've seen that yet.
So there's like a deleted scene, or at least a still of it, and it's some kind of, almost, I don't want to say like a mythical creature, but there's some kind of creature in it that's nothing but bones that kind of comes out and roars at him. And I'm thinking, my God, you're going to be stuck in a place like this with these kind of creatures for the rest of your life. That's horrible. It's really scary.
That's probably why he took it out. He was probably like, that's just too much.
Right. I mean, it was
them just being stuck in the sunken place. Now we added a monster into it.
But yeah, like I said, it's an outstanding first, debut, first film. Yeah. I couldn't get enough of it. I still can't get enough of it. And the last little thing I will say, I didn't notice this either. My aunt actually brought this up. So when he's on his way to the Armitage's house, um, it's actually not quite sundown, but you saw Lovecraft Country, so did you see
Yes, the
Lovecraft Country? Okay, so
sundown, the
you're familiar with the
sundown.
sundown
Yeah,
town. Yeah.
yeah,
So she said that that's what it made her think of, that he was
yeah,
on his way into that type of town. So I was like,
yeah.
oh, I didn't even think of that either. And I
I
love the fact
didn't
that
know.
this kind of film goes it goes across to a lot of different ages, a lot of older people in my family like this movie and they don't like horror at all, but
Yeah,
they get it. So they understood that part and they
yeah,
actually enjoyed it. They didn't really like Us that much, but they liked Get Out. I don't know why that is.
yeah. Us is a little bit more divisive for sure. Let me take a quick aside though. Uh, Lovecraft Country, since you mentioned it, I'm so pissed that there's no season 2 coming.
Don't remind me.
Oh
Just
my
don't
god,
remind me.
that makes
I
me
I
so mad. That show was so good. I was late to the game on that, but once I finally watched it, holy crap, that was one of the best shows I've ever seen, ever.
I
And
think
I'm
that
so
and
mad it's not.
that year that came out, that and the Watchmen series on HBO, I
Mm,
really liked both of those so much.
I
Lovecraft
need to
Country I
still
loved
watch
way
that.
more. I'm not going to talk about it. You're going to love it. But
Yeah, it's on my list.
Lovecraft
Never
Country,
ending
oh
list.
my gosh.
Oh my
So
god, that
many
was
great
so good.
characters, so many great things. I it had every a little bit of everything that I'd ever want. And I got to see Lovecraft. I got to see like Shoggoths and monsters that I wanted to see on
Yes.
TV. Like I'm not, it was like a geek girl dream come true. You have no
Oh,
idea how geeked out I was every week to watch that show.
oh man, it was just so good. I binged that like super quick. I think over a couple of days, and it was just oh man, I was flabbergasted. I was so mad at myself for having waited so long, but but I got to watch it all at once, so I was like, all right,
Yeah,
that's the good trade off for me because then I could
that's
just
even
binge it.
better because week to
Yeah.
week was killing me. It was literally killing me, but I could not stop watching because it was that good.
Oh, it's so good. Oh
I
my
know.
god, I seriously don't understand why HBO didn't pick it up. And that I was so mad, but I'm glad that and we were talking about this recently that I can't pronounce her name, but she ended up going on to Loki as one of the timekeeper
Oh,
guard
Woomy.
people.
I can
Yeah.
never remember her last name. I just posted about her other day. She is such a
Yes.
gorgeous and
Oh yeah.
wonderful actress,
She
and
was
just
so good in Lovecraft Country, and then I was like, that was one of the things that bothered me was that she was so good, and then Jonathan Majors was so good in that, and
mhm.
and then they both ended up on Loki. I
And
was just like,
Loki.
oh, thank God.
Now, having said that, did the actress that we're talking about? Did you have you had a chance to see His House?
What do you mean? What?
There's a movie called His House. There's a horror
Oh
movie
no, I
about
have
his.
not.
Okay, so if you've got Netflix, she's in it. It's really a great horror movie. It's one that
Oh,
nobody
okay.
talks about. Primarily, it's about an African couple, and it'll knock your socks off because
Oh, I've
she's
heard of it.
really good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I've heard of it.
I,
That's
I'm
cool.
not gonna ruin that. You gotta watch that one, and then we can
Okay.
talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah. Cool, cool, cool. All right. All right. Now I got that out of my system. Um Us. So for Us, I love Us. This is actually my favorite of the two because it is so weird and confusing, and everything that goes into it is just so bizarre. And literally have only watched it twice. The first time I watched it with my daughter, and we were just like, I especially was just like, I don't know what is going on, but I love it. And so I was real happy to revisit this, um, because and I enjoyed it just as much the second time around.
So I can tell you, I actually did go to see this one. My daughter and I went to see it because we had missed Get Out, and we were
Yes.
like, okay, we're not missing another one. We're going to go see this one. Um, and it was funny because when we went, there was hardly anybody in the theater. I think there might have been maybe 8 people when we went. Um, and it was really, really fun. My daughter is not a film goer, and she was
Okay.
adamant about us going. So
Wow.
as we're watching this, we're both sitting there trying to figure things out, and because with Get Out, you're like, okay, there's got to be something. What is it? We got to figure it out. And we had some theories going, and you know how it is. You see a trailer or you see a poster, and you're like, it's probably about this, and she was partly right on her theory that it had something to do with doppelgangers, which I kind of thought that too, but then it twisted even more in that doppelganger fashion, the story that he's telling about this family. I cannot tell you how much I love this movie.
Oh my God, it's so good. This is what drives me crazy is like people don't like this one. Like I know there's quite a few people do enjoy it, but like this one does not get talked about as much as Get Out does. And I'm not dismissing Get Out at all, because Get Out is fantastic. But Us, for me, is just on a next level. Like this is a guy, he made Get Out, and Get Out's a pretty straightforward story for the most part. It takes some awesome twists and does some cool stuff. But Us is so next level. It's very Twilight Zone. Which makes sense because then he goes on to do Twilight Zone later.
Right.
And so that's what it reminds me of so much, is it's just this bizarre story that is kind of leaves things hanging, but and it's so hard to talk about because it is so bizarre. But it's just it's so good. Lupita Nyong'o, oh my God, she is fantastic in this movie. And then Winston Duke, man, he is so funny. I'm not even like, dude, he needs I didn't even realize he was M'Baku in Black Panther. They are totally different characters, and I was like, that's the same guy. So yeah,
I remember reading somewhere that basically Jordan Peele based this character on himself because he's so, I don't want to say Cliff Huxtable, but he's such a dad. You know what I mean? He's like a run-of-the-mill dad. He's not like a boisterous, ex-football player or real, just cocky or anything. He's just like a nerdy dad. And I totally see, Jordan Peele being this kind of dad, just making these dad jokes and, I love both of them. And yeah, you're right. They're actually both in Black Panther. Now that I realize that.
Yeah. That's true.
But one thing I do want to touch on about Us that I really enjoyed is that the children, the child actors were probably the most realistic siblings I've seen on screen in like a long time. Like they actually came across like they were siblings. And I really like that the kids were just as much as survival mode as the parents were. They weren't, you know what I mean? Because usually kids are crying and they're helpless, and these kids were pretty doggone resilient.
They were they were badass. They go into that the White family's house, and she picks up that golf club, and then he's like, all right, I'm gonna pick up this heavy rock statue because he doesn't even know what it is. He looks at it like, I don't know, it's heavy. And they go to town, man.
They really do. And I really love that. And on a personal note, I've already said on your podcast earlier, I am a chocolate covered lady. So it was really important for me personally to see. I noticed that Jordan Peele proactively hires darker skinned African American people to play. He's not trying to, not that there's anything wrong with people who have lighter shade, but I love the fact that the kids look like the parents. A lot of times if you see commercials or movies, the kids are biracial and the parents are both dark. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but realistically, everybody should look similar. And I love the fact that this family looks similar. I thought that was a really beautiful touch to have these kids resemble what their parents look like. But yeah, that was one of my favorite things about it, because I'm an only child. So to see their little sibling, her kind of teasing him and, him jumping out of the cupboard and scaring her, that kind of thing, I thought that was really cute.
But when the chips were down, they were a team. And so
they were
that was
very
really
much
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And even when the two twins were picking on her brother, why is your brother weird? He's not weird. He just has a hard time focusing. Because it's kind of like that, I can make fun of him, but you can't. So
exactly.
That spoke volumes to me, even though I'm an only child. I love seeing that on screen.
Speaking of the twins, I actually have 2 pieces of trivia about that. One, those twins actually played the daughter of Ross and Rachel on Friends. They were
really?
little baby Emma. Yep, they were little baby Emma on Friends way back when. So it was interesting to find out, especially for me because I'm a big Friends fan. And then the scene where they're when they are lying dead, when the kids come up the stairs and they're lying dead on the hallway, just when the kids first come up on the stairs, they are literally positioned like the Grady twins in The Shining.
I caught that like just when we just watched it a couple of days ago. I was like, holy crap, it's like The Shining.
Yep. I literally had to look it up because I was like, wait, they're positioned in a very odd way. I was like, let me look that up. And I pulled up the picture and was like, yep, it is exactly. I mean, down to everything, the way their legs are, the way their arms are, everything is in the exact same position as the Grady twins.
And this is how we know he's a horror and a film fan. You can see it in almost everything that he touches. It's really, really, it's neat when you're a film nerd and you see another film nerd do these things.
Yeah. But, again, that was something I didn't catch the first time, but it was something I caught this time. Not that I was really looking for anything, because again, this time, because it had been so long since I'd watched both of these movies, I was still kind of just watching them in enjoyment mode, like just letting it, hit me. But yeah, I caught that this time. I was like, oh, nice nod. So, but yeah, I had to get that out. That was like my only note I made for this.
Well, I mean, that's okay. We don't have to have a billion trivia things, but
no, I don't like doing that. I like pulling out a few here and there, but I don't want to be the people who bring out like lots of trivia.
Like all the trivia, this? Yeah, exactly. No, we don't need that.
But that's for other podcasts to do.
But because you did reference The Shining with the Grady twins, I will say this. When they are driving towards the vacation home, did you notice that it was a reference to The Shining, the overhead
top shot? Down overhead,
right?
Yeah. I liked that. I didn't catch it the first time, but I liked that, and it's in the trailer too, when they're walking on the beach and you get the aerial view and they're like their shadows are like casting long next to them and everything. I was like, oh, that's like that's a nice little metaphor for the tethered right there too.
So, right underneath. Yeah, that's when my daughter started having that theory that, they have doppelgangers. And then of course when we got the trailers and they started saying it's us, and we started, as much as I love Lupita in this role, and I really do feel like she was robbed of a nom for this, but I think everybody, at least with the initial family that we start out with, I think they were robbed because everybody played their doppelganger so well. The kids,
so good.
Winston Duke. It was really fun to see that. Think about it. How shocking would that be to know that you have another part of you that looks just like you, has gone through all of these things. And I love how they kind of give you a little exposition where, it was probably some kind of government experiment and they thought that they could control, people above with the people below or whatever. And then they just scrapped it.
And then just like government, they just abandon it and just let it rot. And then,
But I mean, so many things were so, you're right. Like this was such a trippy Twilight Zone-esque kind of film. And one of the things right at the beginning, where they're kind of doing the kind of singing at the beginning, and you see all these rabbits, and I'm like, what the hell are the rabbits got to do with anything? And then they explain, it's cheap because rabbits multiply and then they can eat them. And I'm like, holy crap, that's some sick stuff right there. Just leaving these people down here to their own device. And
just having to eat the rabbits raw and bloody, like
raw. What did you think though initially when you saw when you got to the ending, like I know we're kind of jumping all over, so you guys got to bear with us. But when you got to the actual reveal of, when you got to the actual reveal of between Red switched. And Adelaide, yeah.
I was knocked off my feet. I was not expecting that for sure. I had just assumed that, you know, she'd been traumatized by that experience, by meeting her doppelganger, but I did not expect that they had switched places, that she had, that were, you know, the original Red or whatever had switched with Adelaide and taken her life. It was a shock, but it was fantastic. It was such a great twist. I love stuff like that, where it's like, you don't expect that. There's no way that you could call something like that. And I mean, anybody who says they did, you know, you're a liar.
They're lying.
There's no way you knew that.
You completely. You are lying your ass off.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that like you find out about all that there's like doubles, like there's a double of everybody in the United States in these underground tunnels, and they're literally, like, at least, you know, in the past, they were literally doing the exact same thing you were doing. It was disturbing. I'm
not even going to comment on that, because I do a lot of weird shit, and I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
You're the double.
Probably.
Oh my God.
but when you get to that reveal, though, it really, it gives you that kind of, oh, that makes sense why she wouldn't talk after because she had to learn how to talk.
She had to learn how to talk. Yeah.
It's like,
and then you realize why Red's throat
sounds
is like why
that.
She talks like that, because she'd been choked so hard that it had damaged her, you know, vocal cords. And yeah, it's, oh man, it's like, once that reveal hits, and it was cool seeing Yahya Abdul-Mateen as her father, because then he's in the new Candyman. So I thought that was interesting.
He's like everywhere. He's in the new Matrix too.
Yeah, he's in the new Matrix too. Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great to see him in that role. And then side note, if you haven't seen Watchmen, I'm talking about Watchmen again, he's in that as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I really want to watch that. I watched the first episode, and then I got distracted by everything else, and I haven't gone back to watch it. It's on my list.
Well, I will tell you, if it's on your list, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to say he plays a pretty prominent person.
Okay.
And
cool.
I was in love with it when I saw it. So
I'm definitely going to have to check that out, because I like him a lot.
I do too.
He's I know you haven't watched the new Candyman yet. Shame on you. But
shame.
You call yourself a horror nerd. No.
I'm gonna get to that this weekend, actually, because I told my son, I said, you know, I really need to watch this before I start talking on the podcast. And he's like, but don't watch it without me. So that's why, hence I have not watched it yet. I'm one of those people I have people I have to wait on. I can't binge anything. I can't watch stuff. But yeah, this was out of the world.
You'll like it.
Yeah, I hope I'm hearing great things about it.
I think you will love it. So
well, then we'll talk about that another time.
Yes,
then
yes, we
that'll
will.
Be
yes. I'll get you back on for an all Candyman episode.
All Candyman. So what I wanted to say about this one too is we do have those great subtle nods to things that I did not catch the very first time, such as the Hands Across America reference at the beginning on the television that we end up seeing at the end of the movie with all of the tethered and their hands across America. And then I didn't notice. I noticed that there were VHS tapes on the side and they kind of zoomed in. But I only noticed the title of one of them. And then when I rewatched it recently, I noticed the titles of the other ones. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense now. So one of the VHS tapes is Chud, which everybody knows is a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller, which they're underground and not cannibalistic, but they're underground dwellers.
But they're underground dwellers, yeah.
Right. So that makes perfect sense. But the other movie that I didn't realize was The Goonies. And then later on, Red says, "This is our time up there." And I was like, I didn't even recognize that she
Yeah.
said the Goonies line. It's like, oh, well, it makes
I
sense
didn't
because that was
catch
a
that.
movie
Yeah.
she watched as a kid. So that's in
Yep.
her head. Um, I don't know. This movie, like, it blew me away, just like Get Out. But I do see a lot of people who don't like it at all. Like, you either have people, like you said, that like it, or people that are just like, it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think they're just expecting Get Out Part Two, and this is something, he's not going to make the same movie every
Yeah.
time.
No. And I think
So,
the success that he got from Get Out allowed him to make a more wild movie, something that was bizarre and and different in a way that was not going to be classifiable. Um, because it's like, as much as Us, you can say it's a horror movie, but it's also not a horror movie. It's like a science fiction movie.
mm-hmm.
It's this uh movie about class and race and everything. I read an article today by Richard Newby. He's on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter, and he
Mm-hmm.
wrote an article about why this movie is in a way a a reflection of the country during Trump. And I was like, and he raised good points. Um, so I mean, for anybody curious, please look that up. Richard Newby. He wrote an article about
I
it,
mean, I
so
can
it's really
totally
good.
see that, though, the
Yeah.
whole kind of classist system and kind of keeping others out. You know,
Right.
I can really see that. And I think he does it in such a smart and effective way that you people don't really get what he's
Right.
trying to say a lot
It's
of
not in your
times.
face. Like, and that's
Right.
what
And
I
and
think,
that's
that's what the
good.
best storytelling is that you can tell this story and it can work on the one level of just being a great movie just about scary shit and about
Hmm.
weird stuff. And but then you get these deeper levels to it. You can view it in different ways. And that's what makes a great movie for me.
I think so. That's what gives it like longevity, and it's stuff that you can talk about. I know, for me personally, when Get Out came out, I had multiple conversations with different people about what it was like and what it meant to them, and then we also had the same conversations when it came to us. What it represented, and why it was important, why it was a good thing that it came out when it did, just like you were
Right.
saying, during that particular time of our our lives.
Right.
And it's something that people need to be aware of, but like you said, he's not like browbeating it to death with a
No,
hammer of
exactly.
what it is. So to me, these movies are outstanding. I mean, once again, I'm so excited to see Nope. I can't even tell you, like.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be interesting because I'm hoping that he's gonna go in another bizarre direction, something that will be something we haven't ever seen before.
Mhm.
And I mean, and even if it is something we've seen before, he's gonna put his own spin on it, and it's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you on that.
All right.
So
Anything else we want to
let's
say
see.
about us? I
Um,
think I've
no,
said
I
pretty
I
much
think
everything.
we
Yeah.
pretty much went through all of it. Yeah. I do want to say, I'll say this. So one thing I do like is a lot of the little horror nods, like you said, with the Grady twins, and The
Right.
Shining, and then their son's name is Jason,
Yeah, and he's
and
always
he
wearing
wears a
masks. Yep.
mask. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have to think about the tethered. They're always wearing the one glove, which
Yes. And
kind of looks. Go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's kind of, I'm assuming the one glove is because Adelaide, well, the real Adelaide was a child in the 80s, and Michael Jackson always had the one glove, but it kind of almost seems almost like a Freddy Krueger kind of
Yeah.
brown
Yeah.
hand glove. And then also Jason's doppelganger has the burnt face kind of like Freddy Krueger. So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of Alice in Wonderland. I love when they have literary references, but there's a lot of Alice in Wonderland. So it's clever. It worked.
There's
he
so
knows,
many levels.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, and they're all wearing jumpsuits like Michael Myers.
Exactly.
The glove thing is definitely a Michael Jackson reference. Has to be. She was wearing that Thriller t-shirt in the beginning.
Right. Exactly.
So, it's definitely that, but I definitely see the Freddy Krueger influence as well. So,
and then also the Lost Boys, because the dad's like, oh yeah, they're filming a movie over on the boardwalk over there.
Oh yeah, I didn't even catch that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't catch that was going to be Lost Boys. Nice one.
So it's kind of cool. Yeah, I think that probably had the most horror references, and I was like, oh, I love this. I love literally everything about this movie.
Yes. Yeah. And again, it didn't, like you said, it didn't browbeat you with it. It was little things here and there just to add those little touches that just enhance it if you're a horror nerd. So
yeah, and this is also one that they left kind of ambiguous, because what are we going to do with the tethered? Are they going to just kill them, or are they going to try to reassimilate them in society? Do now? Yeah, what's going on?
You just get that scene of them all across like the land in this giant chain. And then like, what are you going to do? Like they literally killed like a bunch of people. So like, are they going to kill them also? What, like, it leaves it so open-ended. And then also,
which is like a Twilight Zone. Cause you're like, okay, what does this mean? And you're got that question mark. Like, what the hell what goes on now? I don't know.
Well, and then also Jason like looks at her strangely when they're driving away, and he puts his mask back on his face because he's like, something's up with her, and so he kind of suspects. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I do want to ask you, and I've had this discussion with my family before, when we get our heroes or our family, and they each take out successfully their doppelganger. They each. So the question I always have, and this is just something that goes on in my weird brain, is did they take out their doppelgangers because they're half tethered because of their mom not really being you know what I'm saying? And
well, at least weird. With the kids, but the husband wouldn't have been half tethered, but
the kids, definitely the kids. But I feel almost too go ahead.
Yeah, no. I do believe that. Like, I agree with you on that one, because especially with Jason, when he walks backwards and then his doppelganger walks backwards into the fire. Because like, why would he do that otherwise? The others didn't act like that.
And it was so weird too, because when I started kind of thinking, okay, maybe something's not right with Adelaide, because when her daughter, and I can't remember her daughter's name, I'm so sorry, Zora. But when Zora kills her doppelganger, and then Adelaide goes to the tree almost like she wants to comfort her. And the same thing with Jason's doppelganger when he's walking back and she's like not wanting him to do it. It's that maternal instinct from she's attached to both of them in that kind of half in, half out world. And I thought, as a mom, I was like, oh my gosh, that would be heartbreaking to see not your child, but kind of your child. But
the clone of your child. So it's almost like seeing your children die. Yeah, for sure.
Right. And the great thing too, I'm one of these people, I always pay attention to detail, like it's just a sickness, I guess. But as the movie started, our Adelaide that we think is Adelaide, her clothes are a very neutral color, like they're just beige or white or off-white or whatever. Yeah. But by the time she gets on there to fight Red, she's got all the blood on her. So her clothes are actually getting darker and getting more red as she gets descending down into this underground area. She's looking more like what they do. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's such a great touch. I would have never thought to make her clothes more and darker as she descends back down. And that's it. That's my spiel. I'm done. I could talk all day about little things, but
I love that.
If we did a Tarantino podcast, I think we'd be here all night. I really do.
Oh my God. I might be hitting you up for that because I need to talk about some Tarantino. Speaking of, we are gonna talk a little bit about Tarantino here in a little bit. Specifically one movie. So we wanted to talk, not just about Get Out and Us, we want to talk a little bit about black horror in general. We both really love the documentary Horror Noir, which is on Shudder. You can also buy it on Blu-ray. It's a fantastic documentary about the history of black horror, and there's so much I learned from it that I wasn't even aware of. Like just the like the length of the history involved in it, just how much black horror there was, things that I would have never considered were black horror, or representations of black people in horror. And so yeah, everybody should check that out. It's so good. And I have not watched the anthology movie, also called Horror Noir, that's also on Shudder. I haven't watched that yet, but I've heard that it's really good also.
I did watch it. I think I liked it, but I think there were some segments ran a little too long. I think pacing is always a problem for me. So if the pacing doesn't hold my attention, then I'm out. But the stories were very original. I really enjoyed it. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely want to get on that.
Yeah. I'm not a huge anthology fan, so it's always like one of those things that it takes me some time to work up into, just because it's like that. There'll be some segments that are really good and I want them to keep going. And then there's other segments that I just do not like. And I'm like, yeah, this one sucks. I don't want to watch this. And it just derails the whole thing. So I'm just like, no, don't want to watch this ever again. So, but yeah, I definitely want to check it out. But I specifically wanted to, and I know you're a huge fan of Pam Grier.
I am. That's my queen.
Oh man,
I absolutely love her.
I'm a big fan too, and I came to being a fan of her much later, and this is where the Tarantino connection comes in, because I'm a huge Tarantino fan, and he had her in his movie Jackie Brown, and which is based on the Elmore Leonard novel, which is called Rum Punch, which was actually a white woman in the book. So he not only changed the title to play into Foxy Brown, but also so that he could have Pam Grier in the role, and which I think was a fantastic choice. So
I think he's in love with her. I mean, I think growing up as a kid, he clearly was infatuated with this woman, and who wouldn't want to? If I was a movie director, I would put her in my movie. I would put her in every movie, probably.
Yeah.
So to me, Pam, she's just like the epitome of I don't know how to say it without sounding like a perv, but she's this epitome of just sexy, strong Black women. And there's something I probably saw these movies when I probably should not have at a very young age, but it kind of imprinted on me. She was just like, she wasn't there to just be a sex pot. She was there also, killing people if they crossed her or people in effect. Yeah. So I really, really, really love watching her. I love watching her on screen. And I love the fact that she actually did horror, quite a few actually.
Yeah. She, so I came into her through Tarantino when that movie came out, and it had been a number of years. I think I'd watched a couple of them. I think I'd watched Coffee and Foxy Brown over the years, because those were the big ones. But last year I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch all of her 70s exploitation movies. So I started with like The Big Birdcage and went up to, I actually haven't watched the last two that I need to on my list, which are Bucktown and Friday Foster. So I still need to watch those two. They were just on Tubi, but they just got knocked off Tubi. So I'm just waiting for them to show back up on one of the.
Oh man, Friday Foster is like one of my favorite ones. It's such a fun flick, and she's almost like a little, I don't want to say private eye, because that's not what she is. She's a photographer,
like a reporter.
Yeah, but it's so cute. And Yaphet Kotto's in it, and I absolutely love him. So
Carl Weathers is in it.
Everybody's in. Carl Weathers is he's not good, but he's a villain in that movie. So
no, I know, but I was surprised. I actually started watching it the other day before it got knocked off, but then I couldn't finish it. But I saw him in it. I was like, wait a minute, is that Carl Weathers?
Yeah, it's a lot of people in that movie, but Yaphet Kotto is like one of my top favorite like old school actors. So when I
Yeah.
saw the two of them together, I was like, this movie was made for me. But yeah, that definitely get to those if you can. Big
Yeah, I
Birdcage
will.
is one I just watched not too long ago, like a few years ago. I'd never seen that one either, and I
I
really
had
enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I hadn't seen any of her stuff other than like Coffee and Foxy Brown up until last year. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did this big I was doing it like where I was watching every day or every other day or whatever. I was just watching a new Pam Grier movie that I hadn't seen before. And there were quite a
Mm-hmm.
few during that basically 70, 71 to 75. She, in the first couple, she's just like a bit player, and then she becomes like, the co-star, and
Mm-hmm.
then with Coffee and Foxy Brown and Friday Foster and everything, she's the star.
Mm-hmm.
And which, like, just within a few years, and it was just with certain directors, she just got that tick up. And it's understandable because her screen presence is just fantastic. You can tell even from Big Birdcage and stuff that she just the camera just gravitates to her
Yeah,
whenever
the
she's
camera
on
loves
screen.
her. It
Yeah,
does.
it's just she's just so dynamic. And it actually really makes me mad too, because after 75 she drops off a little bit. She pops
Mm-hmm.
up, but after that point she's just a co-star. She's just a lower tier co-star and everything
Mm-hmm.
from that point on until Jackie Brown. So it's I just it baffles me that somebody of her star quality just did not get the roles.
Yeah, it's
And
weird too, because when I grew up watching, all of the 70s stuff, I didn't see her for a long time. And then the next time I remembered seeing Pam Grier and just like you're saying, in like a smaller role, was actually in a Disney film, if you can believe it. There was a film called Something Wicked This Way
yeah,
Comes, and she's in that for like, all of 10 minutes. And I was like, oh shit, that's Pam Grier. It's like, it took
yeah,
me like a minute to realize that was her. And then I didn't see her do anything for quite a while. Until like maybe the 90s. I think that's when I started actually seeing her back and doing stuff again.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
So,
But you look at her filmography and she was doing stuff, but it was really small roles.
yeah.
And I don't know if that was by her choice or just nobody was really casting her in anything that was of significance. And
I think it might have been a little bit of both. I think it might have
yeah,
been partly her choice and then partly that nobody was giving her any roles. Because then she had like a huge resurgence, like you said, with Jackie Brown, and she was on the L Word and, and a bunch
yeah,
of other things. And like, wow, this I still think just seeing her on screen and Jackie Brown, that movie alone makes me go, wow, you really
yeah.
should have been bigger than you were.
She should have been like that movie. Like I said, that movie is what really introduced me to her. And I was like, wow, like there, like I can see why he put her in the movie. I can see why she was famous, before,
Mm-hmm.
and it baffles me. But yeah, she had that resurgence in the 90s. I don't know if it was specifically after working with him or whatever, but she was in Mars Attacks, she was in Original
Mm-hmm.
Gangsters, she was in what was the Escape from LA.
Mm-hmm.
She was in just a bunch of stuff. I mean, again, guest star roles, but
Right.
you know, but they were significant, a little bit more significant than she had been throughout the 80s, at least. So it's crazy. She's so good. And to connect this to horror, she was in the sequel to Blackula. She was in Scream, Blackula, Scream,
Mm-hmm.
which is, to me, it's definitely the better one of the two. And a lot of that has to go to her.
I will
She's
agree with you 100% on that. That's probably my favorite of her and horror because one, and I know you saw the horror noir, but in that movie she was actually able to act. They weren't
Yeah,
expecting her to take her clothes off, and not
right.
that she doesn't have a gorgeous rack. I mean, who doesn't want to see a rack? But
Right.
I'm just saying it really helped show that she had really great acting talents. And
Right.
I really love that one too, because she's really vulnerable, but she's also powerful because she's, in this group of, are they voodoo priests? I can't remember. I want to say
I
that.
think so. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's been a
so,
little bit since I saw it. It was last
yeah,
year.
it's been a while since. I usually watch it every October, but um I just love the fact that not only does she kind of join forces to help take out the opposing person, but she actually is the only person that really successfully killed Blackula.
Right.
I That blew my mind. Like, I mean, he wanted to die, but you know what I mean. It
Right. Right.
was such a great thing to see that, and it was great to also see voodoo not being used as a, oh, it's a evil thing. These
Right.
people
Yeah.
actually gravitated toward it because that was their religion. That was what they believed in. Um, and she just came across as a very vulnerable person, but also a very strong person when she had to be, which is usually her MO. She's usually vulnerable and strong at the same
Oh
time.
yeah.
But the acting in that, for me, it blew me away.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think that's really indicative of a lot of her movies during that time too. Like in her starring roles, at least, you get the vulnerability, but you also get the strength that comes through that,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And that's what you want out of any character. I mean, man or woman, you want to, like, sure, it's great to see Schwarzenegger, tear shit up, in Commando, but you really want more human characters. That's why you get John McClane, and these other ones that last a lot longer in some ways because they have that vulnerability, but they also kick ass. And
Yeah.
so, it's great to see that with a woman as well, because especially for a woman, because they're always portrayed as being either one or the other. They have to be so super kick ass that they almost come across as masculine, without having any vulnerability. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's great with her. And, I know her movies weren't really targeted for, and I don't think they did super well, like in the mainstream, but, for that, like as it's gone along with history and stuff, that people have come to appreciate those movies a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
for her performances, um, and just the movies in general. So because those movies kick ass. So
They do.
yeah, I mean, that it's a weirdly unsung, like, not just for her, but blaxploitation in general is a weirdly unsung genre of film. I mean, for certain people, they love it. The grindhouse crowd, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of people that gravitate towards that stuff. But there's so much, you push aside some of the silliness and everything, and you get the really good movies that there is a lot there. Um, and it's just fun and fantastic.
It is. And think that's probably I think blaxploitation horror is probably one of my favorite horror genres, just
Yeah.
because they usually are absurd, but when you, like you just said, when you get to the action, I mean, because the absurdness is what I like about it. But
Right.
and growing up watching them, it was just like, once again, it's one of those things when you see yourself represented on screen, even in a crappy movie, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is nice. I love this. Um, but what I like about Pam too is that she was in a lot of horror movies. Like, I didn't expect to see her, in Ghost of Mars. If you've
Yeah.
ever seen Ghost of Mars,
Yeah.
I absolutely loved her in that film for the time that she was in it. And Bones is not a great
Oh,
horror movie, but
Bones.
I have fun with
Yeah.
Bones.
Yeah. But I don't think Bones is necessarily bad. I think there's a good movie in there. There's a
Mm-hmm.
very good concept in there. It's just it was hampered by being made in the 90s or in the
Yeah,
late
it
90s.
it was
Um
not the time to make that.
it is
Probably
not, it's
not.
one of those ones that's like very, like, has not aged well.
No,
Just because
not
of
at all.
the time it was made, and it's like stuck in that time.
Mm-hmm.
um and it doesn't feel timeless in that way. Like, Scream feels timeless. It was in the 90s, but but that movie feels timeless, whereas just Bones for some reason just seems so, I don't know. There's so much cliche stuff in there. It's just weird. There's great
I think
performances though.
yeah, I think
I
the
think Snoop
reason that
Dogg is
Scream
awesome in that.
now he is awesome. You could tell he's just having fun
He's
and
having
like
fun, man.
yeah. But I think the reason Scream probably feels timeless, even though we know it's in the 90s, is they were smart enough to not use a 90s soundtrack. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah,
when you watch Bones, I think because of the way that the soundtrack and
yeah,
there's certain things about it that just screams that you can't get away. It's like 2000. That's early 2000. That's all
yeah,
that is.
yeah,
Whereas with Scream, we can kind of that could be we know it's the 90s, but it could really be 80s or 90s or 2000s. They were smart enough not to kind of put it in that period like a lot of overly other than the cell phones that
yeah.
that's the only
Then
thing
the
I can
cell
think of
phones.
that
Yeah,
really screams 90s to me, like the
yeah,
mid 90s. But
right.
she's one of those people that I wish would do a lot more, or that
Oh
people
man,
would use her a lot more.
yeah,
Because even Ken Foree, even he started having like a resurgence, once he was in the Rob Zombie movies, and he was in the
right.
Dawn of the Dead remake. And I love seeing actors that used to do things, but I wish people would use them more. I think
Right.
it would be more effective.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's like
she's
Barbara
great.
Crampton now. Barbara
Oh my
Crampton's like
gosh.
having a huge resurgence right now, and it's
Yes.
awesome.
And I love it.
Yeah.
I loved her in the
Yeah.
80s stuff, and I love her in the stuff that I'm seeing now. It's really fun to see. And you can tell she loves doing it.
She loves doing it. And now she's producing and having a control on the other end of it. So she's actually like, helping to get other movies made. And so she's using that status of herself as like one of the big scream queens, and like using that to push forward new movies and helping to get the some of the movies that she's been in, like You're Next and the other ones, made just because she's in it, so that
Mm-hmm.
helps bump that up for a lot of people. So yeah, it's fantastic. I'm loving seeing that. And to me, I didn't really know her as an 80s horror icon, because again, my depth of knowledge was real small up until just a few years ago. But
Right.
since then, I've like, being a Reanimator and From Beyond and Chopping Mall and all of those things, just, as silly as some of those are, just, they're great, man. It's just,
Those are the best kind. The
yeah,
cheesy 80s. I know you're still kind of new to it. I mean, not new, but I'm
yeah.
telling you, there was not a better time for you to watch horror movies in the
Oh
80s.
no.
I literally loved all three of those movies that you just said with Barbara
Yeah.
Crampton. I could watch them all day long. It's I'm that obsessed with that type of stuff. It's just
Yeah.
that good. It's good.
From
Um,
Beyond was like an interesting one for me too, because like I didn't know anything about it, didn't like, other than it was the fact that it was like all the Reanimator people again.
mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I'll buy that and check it out. And I was like, wow, this is really good. So,
Yeah. Another one
but
I like
yeah,
with her too is have you seen Castle Freak? I'm sure you've seen
I have
Castle Freak.
not. It's on
Ooh,
Shutter. I need to watch it, but I keep,
yeah.
it's been on my list for like 3 years now, and I still haven't
You
watched
sound
it
like
yet.
me. I have an ever-growing list of things people
Oh
tell
my
me to
god.
watch, and I'm like, yeah, I'll put it on the list. That list
Yep.
is
Yep.
ever-growing. But
uh,
I do want to say, yeah, with going back to Miss Pam, yeah,
yes.
she's a treasure. I think if I met
Oh,
that
she's
woman in
awesome.
real life, I'd probably my heart would stop. Um, and I think it's just it's unfortunate, like everybody can see the stellar star quality, and then for whatever reason there's nothing there. But I do think part of it is her too, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say that I think she lives in like Colorado, and she's got horses, and maybe
Yeah.
she's
I
not
think she
really
lives on a
wanting to be in
ranch
the
now.
limelight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I
and
know
that's
she pops up and
understandable.
stuff once in a while, but yeah, it hasn't been, it's been few and far between for the last few years. I think she's
Yeah.
just, living her life, doing her thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think part of that was like, her 70s output was so like she was doing multiple movies a year. I mean, some years
Mm-hmm.
between 71 and 75, she would put out 2 or 3 movies a year. And
Yeah.
so she was turning over those things quick. So maybe by the time after Friday Foster came out, she was just like, I need a break. And so
Yeah.
that's maybe she was then at that point, she was taking smaller roles to just, ease off of that. And then because of that, people were like, meh, you know. So I
Yeah.
mean, she'd pop up in good stuff here and there, like Something Wicked This Way Comes, and the stuff in the '90s and everything. But I would assume that for the most part, it was probably a mutual decision, both her, taking a break and casting people just going, we don't have anything for her,
Right.
so.
Or like you said, she's a Mars attack, so let's let her be the mom or whatever,
Yeah.
So we have her name on the tickets, but on the poster, but she'll be in it for like 10 minutes.
Right. But that's fine.
Yeah.
We got Jackie Brown. So
we did get Jackie Brown.
That is seriously one of my favorite movies ever. I love that movie so much. She's so good in that. Samuel L. Jackson is so good in that.
Everybody's good in that movie.
Oh man. It's like I'm not a big Robert De Niro fan, but I like him in that one. So he's good. So.
He's so funny. I mean,
he's funny, yeah, because he's so understated. He's so understated in that movie. It's just like such a low key role for him. I'm used to him being more animated and everything, and he's just like this stoner dude the whole time. He's just
actually thought that was a really good role for Bridget Fonda too. I don't think I would have ever seen her as a little beach bunny ever in my life. But yeah, we're gonna end up having that Tarantino conversation. That's gonna be like a 3-hour podcast.
That one's gonna be a multiple episode. We're just gonna have to start a whole new podcast just to talk about Tarantino.
I think so. Just talking Tarantino. That's what it is.
There you go. Oh man, it'd be like 15 episodes just on one movie.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Oh my goodness.
It'd be funny.
But back to our horror. Anything else that we can espouse upon?
In horror. So I have definitely, even though I've watched horror noir, I know I've definitely not watched enough black horror to I know there's like a list of things that I need to watch. Like it came up recently again that Ganja and Hess is a really good movie and I need to watch that.
Yes, you do.
But it's not available anywhere now. It was on Shudder for a while and then it's gone again. So I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, the DVD's like $12. I guarantee if you buy it, you'll love it. You're one of those people, you have to watch it before you buy it, right?
Say what?
Are you one of those people you have to watch it before you buy it?
No, not necessarily. I have a bunch of movies on my shelf that I've never seen that I still haven't watched yet.
Oh
that
my
I've never
goodness.
seen before. So
it's one of my favorite. I honestly, it's one of my favorite vampire movies, but it's one of my favorite romantic movies. It's just I don't know. It's almost like watching a horror art film. It's really beautifully shot. Everybody looks just amazing. I can't even describe why I'm obsessed with this movie, but I think it's because it's beautifully shot and it looks like an art film. It's like an art horror film.
Yeah, and then it's the lead from Night of the Living Dead. It's the only other movie he's ever made.
And he's another actor. I feel like Dwayne Jones, he should have been bigger than what he was. I absolutely love, like, he was my first horror heartbreak. Like when I watched Night of the Living Dead and it happened, the ending happened. I think I cried for like 3 days and my mom was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No," it's just, there's just something about his presence, and especially in Ganja and Hess, they're just two really beautiful Black people, and they're very wealthy, and it's just, I don't think I've ever seen Black people in that light. Obviously people watch the Cosby Show and we see, upper middle class Black people, but in the 70s, that wasn't really how they were portrayed. And so to watch this kind of movie and to see them and have all of these like really trippy sexual imagery and it's one you definitely should watch if you can. I would definitely tell you to watch it.
Yeah, I definitely want to. It's been one I've wanted to watch for a while. I keep missing it.
Mm-hmm. I think that the only other one, there's a few that I hold up like really high regard.
Hit me with some suggestions. Yeah.
So the Ganjan Hess is definitely number one on that list. And
yes.
Have you ever seen Sugar Hill?
No, that's another one that I've heard that's really good. I think you were talking about that on your podcast side. I wanted to check that one out.
Sugar Hill is
vampires too, right?
Not vampires. And this one we are dealing with voodoo, which is
voodoo,
always voodoo. Yeah. Because that was the thing in the 70s, voodoo. But it's really a great little revenge story with horror. It's got kind of a horror twist to it. And Marky Bay, who's this phenomenally gorgeous actress, very caramel colored skin, just her body is amazing. It's like I cannot tell you how gorgeous this woman is. But if you look her up, Marky Bay is, even now, like as an older woman, she's still very stunning. Her boyfriend something happens to her boyfriend. He won't sell his nightclub, and some bad people kill him. And so she goes to Papa Legba, who's the voodoo underworld lord, and he's helping her get her revenge. But it's really effective. It's one of my favorites, and the more I watch it, the more I really, really like it. The zombies that they have in there look kind of hokey by today's standards, but that's blaxploitation for you, so you already know what you're getting into. But Sugar Hill, hands down, it's great. And there's a cop in that movie. He was in Scream Blackula Scream, Richard Lawson.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember him in Scream Blackula Scream. He was the guy that Blackula turned into a vampire, and he's like, I can't see myself. A man has got to see what he looks like, and he's getting all dressed up, and he can't look in the mirror because he's now a vampire. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yeah.
So Richard Lawson is another person. He's a great Black actor who's in a lot of horror movies. He was in Scream Blackula Scream, and he's in Sugar Hill. But he also was one of the parapsychologists in Poltergeist. He was the guy with the little mustache, like the Ray Parker Jr. looking Ghostbusters guy. That's what I think of when I see him with that mustache. But he's a cop in this movie, and he kind of thinks he might know what's going on, but the revenge stuff is great. It's almost like, I don't want to say Saw, but it's the way they dispatch a lot of these people in this movie. It's really inventive, I thought, for the 70s.
That's cool.
So that's one of my top favorite ones. We already said Blackula and Scream, Blackula Scream, which we know that's the better one, but I do have fun with Blackula too.
The first one's great too. Yeah.
It's really, really great. And once again, as a kid growing up, it was so great to see all of these people who look like me, and they're just doing all of these really cool things, or I thought was cool things, going to nightclubs and whatever. But that's probably my top bit that I like. I do like JD's Revenge. That's a good one, like kind of a body possession or a ghost possession type of film. But there are some really terrible ones that I still watch, like oh gosh, I cannot remember. There's one with Bernie Casey that's really bad, but it's almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I think it's something like Mr. White and Mr. Hyde or something. Bad. And I do like watching it, but it's not good. It's not a good one.
And then we talked about Blackenstein.
Don't even bother with that one. But we were talking about Abby, I think, because I've never seen Abby. I've only seen like bits and pieces. Did you watch Abby?
No. Which one was that again? I know we talked about it, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's like The Exorcist, but it's she's possessed. Yeah.
Yes.
So I need to watch that, because I think somebody said that might be on YouTube now.
Yes, I was the one who told you that. Yes.
I know you were. That was
because somebody else was talking about it. They were talking about it on Colors of the Dark, the podcast, the Fingery podcast. Colors of the Dark. She mentioned it there.
I really need to go there and watch it before they pull it, because I've only seen bits and pieces of it. But basically, I've heard so many things about this film. I have to see it for myself, because it sounds really like it's off the chain with
Yeah.
badness. But yeah, those are the ones that I can think of. Sugar Hill is a classic. I know
Yeah,
you've heard
I
me
want to
talk of.
definitely check out Sugar Hill and Ganja and House for sure.
Yeah, have you seen? You've probably heard me talk about it. There's a movie called The Beast Must Die, and it's not really a black exploitation. It's just more like a horror movie, I should say. But it's
I
got a
don't
black lead.
I don't know if I've heard that. I've seen that one.
Okay, so if you like werewolves, and I
I
do, I'm
do.
a lycanthrope lover.
Same.
Those are my favorite. I don't know why, but they are. Um, so The Beast Must Die. It it's not like Werewolves Within, which is the newest
Oh, I
werewolf
love
movie
that
kind of.
movie.
Okay, it's in that vein, but not really. So
Okay.
Calvin Lockhart is he's a really another black actor that I just am obsessed with from being a kid. Um, he's basically like black Bruce Wayne. He's like a black billionaire and he's
Okay.
got this estate in England and he invites 6 guests to his house because one of them is a werewolf and he is going to kill them. We don't know which one is the werewolf. Yeah, I know, right? Preposterous. Just
That's
kill them
awesome.
all if you do.
Yeah, right. Just
so
kill them all.
this one was an Amicus production and it's not by any means got great special effects, but it's actually a werewolf murder mystery because we are trying to figure out who is the werewolf.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Interesting.
Marlena Clark, who's in Ganja and has is actually in this movie, and she's his wife. But they
Okay.
actually go through the whole werewolf thing where you have to hold a silver bullet or you have to touch silver, and
Interesting.
it's
It sounds like a werewolf version of House on Haunted Hill.
it's a lot like that. And I would say like 10 Little Indians because this
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
is it's so weird because they give you like a werewolf like a minute to figure out who they give you like a minute werewolf break at the end of the movie so you can
Okay.
try to figure out who it might
That's
be.
funny.
It's
A little like
hilarious.
clue there.
It's a, like exactly. It's like Clue and like Cursed and whatever else you
Ah,
want to
I
throw in
love
there.
Cursed. It's such a stupid ass movie, but I love Cursed.
It's like one of my
I
favorites.
just pre-ordered the Blu-ray from Scream Factory because I was like, I need that.
I love that movie so much. Everybody in that movie killed it.
Oh
It
my
was so
god.
much fun.
Yeah, the
But
second version of the movie, we still need the Craven cut.
we do need the Craven cut. What is
It
up?
make they couldn't get it. They when the Scream Factory just put up the disc for pre-order, they're doing a Blu-ray of it, and it's just the original and the
Ah,
unrated.
my
They
goodness.
even said because the way they originally put it out was that it was a never before seen version, and everybody got excited because we were all like, "Oh my
Mhm.
god, it's the Craven cut!" And then they're like, they had to amend it and go, "Oh, sorry, it's only the original and unrated cuts. We tried to get the Craven stuff, but we couldn't get it. Sorry."
Wow.
Everybody was pissed. We were
Denied.
just like, "No," because we know it exists.
It's out there.
Multiple people who have worked on the movie, Patrick Lussier, said that the footage does exist, and so I'm just like, then where is it? Can we just have the footage?
Can we
I
just
don't
have
care.
the damn
I don't
footage?
care if it's complete. I just want to see it. I want to see the other movie that has Skeet Ulrich in it, that the characters weren't brother and sister. I just want to see that. Oh my god.
So
Give me
I
the
will
Craven
tell
cut.
you, I want to tell you, at least for The Beast Must Die, that is
Sorry.
actually on, that's okay. That's actually on Tubi if you do want to watch that
Okay.
one. So
Cool.
it is there. And Sugar Hill is on Amazon Prime. So
Oh, sweet.
if you want to watch that, because I'm telling you, Marquis Bay is a knockout, but she does have that same kind of Pam Grier. When you look at her, you'll be like, why wasn't this woman a bigger star? And
Yeah.
she has that same kind of vulnerability because like she's very sad and distraught. For some reason, when I look at her, I think not that they're going to remake this, but if they were ever going to remake this, they would get somebody like Beyonce because she kind of has that kind of same facial look. I don't know how to say it right, but she
Yeah.
has very similar features. So I
Gotcha.
think you'll enjoy Sugar Hill. At least The
Okay.
Beast Must Die you'll have fun with, but Sugar Hill it
Yeah.
actually does have a lot of really strong points that it's just a favorite of mine. I absolutely love that one. So that's the only one those are the few that I can think of off the top of my
Okay.
head.
All right. Cool. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna check those out. Sugar Hill, Ganjan has Beast Must Die, and Abby.
Yeah.
Those are the ones
Yeah, we
gotta
need to
check
watch
out.
Abby so we can discuss that one.
Yes, yes, indeed. We'll have to do a whole nother episode just on these 4 movies.
I'll do it. I will gladly
Hey,
come back as many times as you'll let me.
yeah, oh yeah. I think you might become a regular contributor to this podcast.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'll start having you on every month. I need content, so I need people to come on.
Every month, that's a commitment, brother. I don't know.
Hey, you said you would come on as much as possible. You just said that. It's on recorded.
That's pillow talk, baby. We don't.
Just what they call pillow talk.
That's right.
Don't give me Bruce Campbell lines, man. Come on. Don't use my favorite movies against me.
I will do whatever it takes, sir. Well, I'm glad that we could talk a little bit about that, especially with it being Black History Month. I appreciate you having me represent and talk about all of the nice.
I wanted to talk about some Black horror movies, and I couldn't think of anybody better. You were the best person I could think of to have that, and I definitely didn't want to be just like, here, let me bring on another white person and talk some Black horror with. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not stupid.
Oh my God. Well, that's fine. It was my pleasure, and I will come back anytime you ask me. I promise.
Awesome. I appreciate that so much, because I have a great time talking to you, and I definitely can see us doing several episodes on lots of different things. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on, and we'll hopefully hear from you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Donna for joining me on this walk through Black horror and more. We've already recorded another episode that will be coming out next month. So if you enjoyed this one, you'll want to catch that one as well. Make sure to check out her podcast, Donna Tha Dead. That's DONNA THA Dead, where she talks about horror movies also. So until next time, stay creepy.